Hello and welcome to Dolphins on 5. It's the world premiere. Going to be on the 5 Reasons Sport Network weekly, covering the Miami Dolphins, doing something a little bit different here with the network in terms of our coverage. This is going to be a show focused on late breaking news, news of the week, things of that nature. But we're also going to have a lot of great commentary, different features, a lot of wonderful guests from across the network and from outside the network as well, from the world of sports, particularly focused obviously on the Miami Dolphins. So really excited. It's a big week in the NFL overall. We have the NFL draft from Vegas starting on Thursday. From the Dolphins perspective, though, it's not really such a big event in terms of the early coverage. Obviously, the first and second rounds, the Dolphins are going to be watching from the sidelines unless they trade up and move into there. They're going to have the first pick on Friday in round 3 at number 102. And after that, they have a few late round picks as well. But we've seen, especially recently, that the Dolphins have done pretty well in the third round and beyond. So for our world premiere tonight, we're really excited to have our first guest from 5 Reasons Sports and particularly 3 Yards Per Carry. Want to welcome Alfredo Arteaga, and he's going to be joining us. What's going on, Alfredo?
I'm in a hotel room in Las Vegas at the MGM Grand, and the draft is in 2 days. And if you're here and you look at what the city looks like, you can tell that they're pretty jazzed about it. A lot of Raider stuff, a lot of NFL stuff, festooning the streets of Las Vegas.
Yeah, no, that's great for them, obviously, with that brand new, beautiful stadium. I think it's going to be a huge event over there. So, what do you think about on the first night? You think there's going to be any surprises? Would it be possible maybe for the Dolphins to move up and get some prime time on the first night? Or you think, given the moves they've already made, are they going to kind of just sit and let things fall to them?
Yeah, I don't think they can get into the first night of the draft unless they're going to package one of those first round picks from the following year in 2023. So I would look for them not to do anything night 1, night 2 on Friday. It's possible they just package all their picks and move up for the guy that they've targeted all along. So it's very possible that you could see them package all their picks on Friday for that one player that they think can help them this coming year.
Yeah, I want to talk about obviously the offseason was quite a splash with the moves that they made, bringing in, of course, Tyreek Hill, Teron Armstead, Mostert and Edmonds in the backfield. You can see they're scrolling across the bottom. It was a really heavy on the offensive side in terms of the free agent acquisitions. And they also, of course, re-signed some of their own key guys like Mike Gesicki on that side of the ball. So given that early tone that they set, do you think this could be maybe a defensive heavy draft for the Dolphins?
It's a possibility, but if you look at all their visits, if you look at their top 30 visits, 90% of them have been on the defensive side of the ball. But something tells me that they're going to want to get their guy in the backfield. And at 102 and 125, there are a lot of big names in this draft that's very, very deep in running backs. And one of them can fall to them. And he could be their signature back, the guy that they targeted all along. They've had James Cook in. They've talked to Rashad White. Pierre Strong is a guy that they've had some interest in this offseason. So if I had to bet, I would say it's probably a defensive player, but more likely than not, I would bet strongly that it's a running back at 102 or 125.
You think maybe interior offensive line is also a possibility? I know they had to leave Strong or Strange in this week for a visit, the center from
Yeah,
the FCS.
Cole Strange is not a guy I don't think that's going to make it to 102. I think he's a early day 2 guy. Zach Tom from Wake Forest is another guy that they've really, really liked. And everybody keeps calling him underrated. And, everybody keeps saying, this is the guy that you got to look for. He's completely undervalued. He's completely underrated. If everybody is saying that he's completely underrated and undervalued, what does that tell you? That means he's going to go a little higher than everybody thinks he's going to go. If he was really that underrated, he's not going to go 102. He's probably going to go in the second round. So I don't know what can get to them at 102 as far as interior offensive line. Juergens, the center out of Nebraska, is a possibility. But other than that, it begins to thin out, especially on the interior offensive line at 102.
What do you think about the linebacker group. I was looking at just a lot of mock drafts. I ran a few myself, and it seemed like there were some good players in that 100 to 110 range that kind of seemed to be there over a few different simulations I did. One guy I was looking at was Tyndall from Georgia. I thought he
Mhm.
looked really good to me in terms of what he could do on maybe all three downs to the Dolphins. So, what about any linebacker targets that may be of
Well,
interest to
he would
Dolphins
fit.
there?
He would absolutely fit the bill for what they usually look for, uh, especially on the defense side of the ball. They're very SEC centric, so that's probably a guy that they've probably scouted pretty strongly. The Georgia guys, I don't know how many are going to hang around past, let's say, pick 100, but he's one of the ones that can. So I would say him. Another one that could be a home run pick is Davis, the cornerback from Alabama, Armour Davis. He's another one that can drop, and if he does drop, I would think that they would look at him pretty hard.
Mhm. And maybe some safeties as well. Obviously, they have a good starting group with Holland back there, and then Brandon Jones. I think it was a third round pick as well. So they've got a lot of depth in the secondary, but I think there's another body or two they could definitely look to add in the draft as well. Are they maybe in like a best player available type mode and just sort of see where the board falls to them?
I don't think so. I don't think this is a year where they're just going to go BPA at 102. I think they have a pretty good idea of they have a short list, I would say, of the guys that they think can help them right away in 2022. And like I said, I would not be surprised to see them package 102 and 125 to go up and get their guy.
Yeah, and I like the fact that it seems like there's a plan in place. Everybody talked about the offensive side of the ball. They made very specific moves and strategized for that side of the ball. And there's probably maybe still another splash or two to be made in the offseason as well, but outside of the draft. But what other news? Anything you're hearing from around the NFL from other teams in terms of leading up to the draft? What are your thoughts on just some of the other storylines as well across the league?
Well, the biggest storyline is Deebo Samuel, right? And oddly enough, he will be here at the draft on Friday. He will have a media availability. He will sign autographs here on Friday. So I'm pretty sure he's going to be asked plenty of times. I would say if he doesn't get traded this weekend or this week during the draft, then he's probably not getting traded this coming year. Everything I've been told is that San Francisco is going to hold pretty firm. They don't want to trade him. Um, he was uh, he was available just by circumstance this offseason. And I'm pretty sure that Miami has touch spaces because why wouldn't you? They went in a different direction because they probably went with the guy that was actually available in Tyreek Hill. So I'd, I'd love to know if Deebo Samuel gets traded this week because I think if he's going to get traded, it has to be this week. If not, he's playing for the 49ers this coming year.
Yeah, and obviously with the wide receiver market, I think there's going to be another big reset in terms of the guys that are looking to get that next big deal. Anything else you're hearing out there in Vegas?
No, nothing so far. I've just I got off a plane. I had a little lunch, had a couple of beers, and then I brushed up a little bit on the NFL draft, and then I look at all the media availabilities for the rest of the week. So there hasn't been really a very big media presence yet. There's only an ESPN stage and an NFL Network stage. I did see those, but that's pretty much the only media presence there is here. I would expect most of the media gets here tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, we got boots on the ground, obviously, out there. And I think it's going to be a fun week, even for Dolphins fans, just kind of watching how things develop on Thursday. It's always interesting to see where guys go and what your rivals are doing. What do you think that maybe some of the moves within our division? What do you see maybe teams like Buffalo doing?
Oh
Any
what's interesting is I think Buffalo. Obviously, you want to keep some of those top skill players away from them because you don't want an offense that was already overwhelming to get any better, right? But I'd be interested to see what the Jets do with pick number 4. Uh, it's been heavily mocked. Nobody has been mocked more at number 4 to the Jets than Ahmad Gardner, Sauce Gardner. That's his nickname. So I'd be really interested to see if that's the truth, if that's where he goes and number 4. And that makes a lot of sense because this is a division with Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. So, it stands to reason they're going to want, their version of a shutdown corner. Now, the reason I bring up Ahmad Gardner is because he's pretty popular in all the mock drafts. But on the 3 yards per carry podcast, on our podcast, we have our doubts as far as what kind of player Ahmad Gardner can be at the next level. So, that's very interesting to see. I'm very interested to see what the Jets are going to do with their picks in the first round because, the rumors are that they're trying to push that 10th pick for Deebo Samuel. I'm just, I'd be waiting on pins and needles on what the Jets do on Thursday, especially Thursday, because they have a lot of ammunition. I like to see how they deploy it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see kind of the resetting as these teams that have been down for a long time have all this draft capital, kind of where Miami was a couple of years ago. The Jets seem to be in a similar place. They have a quarterback that they're unsure of. They've got a lot of draft capital, a lot of ammunition. So maybe they go into that mode where they start to build around Wilson and they put a much better product on the field. But in terms of the moves that the Dolphins made, just what's your overall consensus on like the strategy? Obviously, one thing that I really appreciated is that they kept their own guys. They kept Gesicki, they kept Agba. They re-signed Landon Roberts. I think there's some low-key good signings there just in keeping your own guys. Nick Needham. What do you think about that message and that mentality for the team? Do you think that's something that kind of goes off script from other regimes?
It's just what the doctor ordered, right? It's what everybody wanted to see. Everybody said, look, the offense is obviously not good enough. Okay, we need a serious upgrade on this offense. But we kind of like the defense. So what we want to do is try to bring them all back if possible. Usually when somebody said, yeah, we want to bring them all back, it usually never works out. It actually did work out this time. They brought back every single free agent, including one that was going to be very coveted, highly coveted in Emmanuel Agba. They brought back Landon Roberts. They brought back Duke Riley. They brought back Nick Needham on a 1-year deal, very affordable 1-year deal. I think that's a guy that you got to look for an extension pretty soon, by the way. And, the only guy that got away was Justin Coleman. That was by choice. Okay. So they brought back every single coach except the 2 secondary guys in Gerald Alexander. And I forget his name right now all of a sudden. But, they replaced him with Patrick Surtain and Sam Madison. So it was like, you couldn't have a better offseason. Like, you really couldn't. If this is exactly like if you draw it up, it was almost Madden style. Okay. If you draw up an offseason, you kind of like what you have on defense. You managed to bring all of that back, including the coaches and the scheme. And on offense, you made a drastic change. Think about it. Before this offseason, they had 1 all-pro player. They have 3 now, okay? That's a pretty big jump in 1 offseason. Tyreek Hill, Teron Armstead, Xavier Howard, all 3 could easily be first-team All-Pro. And, in fact, all 3 have been first-team All-Pro. So, yeah, it's been a magical offseason, really. All that's really left is go and win games. It's up to Tua Tagovailoa. It's up to meshing, this offense line and this system meshing together. And, and making the system work for the quarterback and for Mike McDaniel. So, yeah, it's been really exciting offseason. Like, you couldn't have a better offseason. You really couldn't.
What do you think is the biggest piece they still need? What's the one thing if, like, Miami needs X to really make it just, the best possible scenario?
Well, there's a lot of uncertainty still at right tackle. In my opinion, they seem to be happy with some competition there, and they kind of like the break glass in case of emergency option that they have with Robert Hunt moving to right tackle. But in my opinion, I think there's still a hole. I think ideally you want Robert Hunt to play right guard. I think there's a lot of potential there for him to be really, really good at right guard. I don't know at right tackle if he's as good a player as he would be at right guard. Other than that, they're pretty much stacked at every position. If you could put your finger on one guy, I guess you kind of want a Mike. You want a linebacker a Mike backer that can play all 3 downs and that can keep Jerome Baker as the scrape outside. And if you can do that, then you're making your defense much, much, much better.
And I think
You
you
know,
can find a starting caliber linebacker in the third round. I really do. I was looking at this group,
I
and
believe
I
so.
think and like you said, they like the SEC schools. I think there's a lot of depth in this draft at that position and at the wide receiver position as well. I don't think they're going to miss Devontae Parker.
Mhm.
So give us kind of your wide receiver depth chart, obviously beyond like Hill and Waddle. Like where do you see kind of the rest of the guys shaking out as of now?
Well, you got to figure that Hill and Waddle are going to play a lot of snaps. Okay. And then, and whatever 11 personnel that they do line up in, they made an investment in Cedric Wilson. Okay. Cedric Wilson is essentially making Devontae Parker's contract. He essentially is replacing Devontae Parker. So it stands to reason he's going to get a lot of run. I would say those are your three guys. And I think Preston Williams is going to get some run in the red zone. And then, beyond that, I am not certain. I'm not certain what they're going to do beyond that. But it's a pretty strong group, especially once you get past the first two. If Preston Williams gives them anything, it's a fabulous group. It really is.
It's a deep draft for receivers too. I think obviously
Yeah.
they could find some talent there in the draft, and it's good to be in this position where they have some depth finally, other than of course the perennial offensive line questions. But I think one of the sneaky underrated things obviously was bringing in Teddy Bridgewater and kind of having that situation where it's clear, like, this is going to be two his year. We put in all the pieces in play, but we have definitely a great contingency in Teddy Bridgewater. So, what did you think of that move from the Dolphins?
It's a great move because I thought last year uh, that team was sneaky good last year. If you think about it, if you really think about it, Jacoby Brissett was god awful. Went 1-4. There was a couple of games in there that he lost where I really felt if they got average quarterback play, they probably should have won. And if you win those two games, that's 11-6. 11-6 gets you into the playoffs. That would have been a pretty successful season. In fact, that would have challenged for the division title.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I would say Teddy Bridgewater is a sneaky great signing. Obviously, you don't want to need him, but if you do need him, I think he's a guy that if he has to come in for a couple of games, he could win you a game. Last year with Jacoby Brissett, it just wasn't the case. One guy that I will say, and we didn't touch on it, but you touched on it when you said depth. Melvin Ingram is still out there.
Hmm.
I'm not sure. I was told that they were ready to offer him a contract. They were very interested. They were interested last year, but last year he was more interested in going somewhere that was willing to guarantee him his entire salary for the year. I'm pretty certain that's what he wants this year. I don't know if the Dolphins lowballed him or maybe there's not much of a market out for him, but that's a guy that, keep an eye out for him because if he comes in, he was highly successful last year. He was very, very productive last year. And forget about the sacks. Look at his pressure stats last year. He got to the quarterback. He forced the issue on defense, especially on wide rushes. He helps the Dolphins play Emmanuel Ogbah and Jalen Phillips in 3 technique. Gives them another versatile piece. Gives them added depth to what they already have on the edge with Phillips, Ogbah, and Van Ginkel. So yeah, that's a guy I'm absolutely. I'll guarantee his contract. Like I would. Like why not?
Hmm.
If it's a 1-year deal, I'll guarantee him the $5 million that he probably wants. I'm pretty certain that he's probably holding out for something a little bit better. Dolphins are among those teams now. They're among those teams that are going to be in the mix for all of these, not disgruntled veterans, but these guys that you could just pick up sometime in May and June and can be a big time contributor for your team. So Melvin Ingram is a guy that I'm really interested in seeing how that pans out.
I think people around the league are going to start to maybe see that Miami is a winning organization. Obviously, Flores, is gone, but they were on the track up. So McDaniel, obviously, a lot of hype and everything in terms of what he brings, the creativity. We know it's an offensive-driven league. You look at the success of coaches like Sean McVay, and you're hoping to kind of replicate that formula with the Dolphins. So I think it's starting to become a destination here, and obviously with the tax implications, no state income tax in Florida, things like that, a beautiful stadium, an owner that's showing that they're willing to spend money, and an organization that has a plan. I think the best days are definitely ahead for the Dolphins, and it's exciting that the offseason is not focused on a lot of the negative. It's just like, okay, we did so much work. We have all these great additions. The draft is kind of, not to say an afterthought, but the draft is somewhere where we could supplement the program that we've already have in place and really build something hopefully special for the fans in Miami. So before we wrap it all up, any last thoughts for the show today?
No, no last thoughts. I guess, I'm just looking forward to this draft. It's my first draft that I'm covering live, so I'll be interested to see the process. And, look for us on this very feed on 5 Reasons Sports YouTube channel. We'll have plenty of content for the rest of the week, including Chris Kaufman, who will join me as we recap what the Dolphins actually do this weekend. So also an extra yard episode, plenty of content, plenty of Dolphin content this week. Just look for us right here on 5RSN's YouTube channel.
Thanks a lot, everybody, for watching, and we'll be back later this week leading up to the draft.